but you have the benefit and the challenge of being mark to market every time you pick up the Wall Street Journal. So the valuation question for your shareholders is a little different, although there's still comparisons to NAV, and you guys look at your private valuations in terms of how you analyze what you've done. I'll give you a hypothetical, which maybe isn't too hypothetical. You talk about, again, what the tenants want, right? You made that comment about being driven, which is the right comment, clearly, but you know, a certain multinational bank based in Germany has certain criteria about what they're going to do when they occupy a building or renew a lease. You know, I certainly know firsthand, everybody kind of dismisses these big elephants as not being the market because we've got to figure out how to deal with the middle of the market. But there's a lot of big elephants that are sitting out there establishing very specific criteria. And to me, that has to factor in the valuation ultimately, because you're attracting tenants that you can apply lower credit loss assumptions to, again, higher renewal probabilities to, and yes, maybe even someday a higher rent. But until we have the right tension in the market, that might be a pipe dream. But maybe comment on that. I kind of laid you a little bit there, but I know you guys are thinking about that stuff.
Yeah, I think, you know, we've seen two pieces of anecdotal evidence that the market has moved to some degree to evaluate this stuff a little bit differently. And because we're a long-term holder, we tend, over the last couple of years anyway, not to sell a whole lot, but we've looked to purchase and have purchased quite a bit. So the two pieces that I see coming in through my, coming across my desk are kind of our existing portfolio and how it's being evaluated, particularly at the time of refinance, and perhaps even during operations. And then the second piece is when we're actually procuring assets. And on the first end, what we see is that rents, you don't see a delta in terms of rents, right? We can do a statistical analysis because half of our portfolio in New York is LEED and half of it's not. And so there we have a direct comparable that we can actually check against to see how we're doing in terms of rents. And the last 3 years are not probably a good indication of that because it probably showed a downward slope. But what I would say is that what we found is over the last 3 years, at the same time that rents have suffered, our occupancy rates have been quite significant. And in that time, the number of large tenants in New York in particular, but it's also true of the coasts in general, the number of tenants that have come to New York over the last few years where their short list of items has sustainability on the mandatory list has changed. And so, there have been at least a few very, very large leases that have been signed over the last 2 to 3 years that are driving people like us to be competitive on that list. Because if you don't check the box, you don't get to the short list, right? You don't go from 10 owners to 2 owners in terms of leasing opportunity. You don't get to shake hands. So that's on the front end. In terms of the refinance, it's a little bit more difficult for me to see how the banks are evaluating it, because we're being asked more and more at refinance time to actually include it in the package with no clarity on how it's being evaluated. The flip side of that is we ask when we're actually in the process of procurement now. So when we're out looking for acquisitions, as part of the package that I get for valuation, we're looking at what the building infrastructure is, does it have an Energy Star rating, what do the utility bills look like. And that's a direct conversation that we have with our senior management about what the capital spend is, right? If we buy this building, what do we need to do to it in the immediate term to make it competitive on the market? Because that's where we are.
Seems to me that's the beginning of a new definition.